The light streamed through the broken glass window, floating above the floor, reflecting the lone figure sitting motionless in the dark corner, a solitary presence in the midst of the Vorak clan meeting. Face devoid of emotion. But everyone knew. This game awaited only his word before everything would collapse. Derek Vance had never imagined he would be here, in the heart of the Multi-System Federation's central nexus, the most powerful administrative hub in the galaxy. The Council of Prosperity meeting chamber was a testament to the Federation's wealth and technological advancement. Polished metal surfaces reflecting the glittering stars visible through the massive viewports. Representatives of various alien species sitting shoulder to shoulder in a circular arrangement, and an atmosphere of suffocating tension permeating every corner. At 6 feet, 1 inch tall, with steel blue eyes that betrayed little emotion, Derek stood out as the lone human in the gathering. His thin black cloak, worn over a form-fitting uniform, marked him as an outsider. Yet there was something in his bearing that commanded respect. Behind him, a small high-tech alloy briefcase rested against his chair, hinting at a mysterious mission whose details were known to very few. The alien representatives, Takin, Ether, Rum, Helax, and Vorak, watched each other warily. Each species had sent their highest-ranking officials, a testament to the importance of today's meeting. Rumors about Derek Vance circulated throughout the chamber. The only Earth human invited to join the council. A shadowy background and invisible power. Derek observed them all with practiced detachment. The Takan delegation, with their copper-toned exoskeletons and multiple appendages, huddled together in whispered conversation. The cybernetic ether representatives, half machine and half organic, sat perfectly still. Only the occasional blinking light on their interfaces suggesting they were functioning at all. The translucent Rum floated, rather than sat, their bodies constantly shifting form like liquid glass. The Helax, with their tall, willowy frames and pale blue hair, maintained a dignified poise that Derek had always admired. And then, there were the Vorak, green-skinned, muscular, with piercing eyes that seemed to burn with contained rage. Their delegation was led by Elder Yorn Vorak, an imposing figure with dark green skin weathered by age and white beard adorned with small, crystalline ornaments, symbols of past glory. President Malon Ether, the leader of the Multi-System Federation, rose from the central podium, half organic, half machine. The president's metallic components gleamed under the chamber's lights as he spoke, his voice echoing across the room. Representatives of the galaxy's united species, we gather today to discuss the Pan-Galactic Atmosphere Alliance Treaty, which will regulate the export of toxic gas resources to other planets. This matter is of the utmost importance for the continued prosperity and environmental stability of all our worlds. Derek's attention was momentarily drawn to a flashing notification on his wrist device, a secure message from President Malon himself. He discreetly checked it. Watch for signs of Project Luminous annihilation. Rumors spreading internally. Investigate with caution. His eyes narrowed imperceptibly. The message confirmed his suspicions about why he had been invited here, not just as Earth's representative, but as someone with a particular set of skills, someone who could operate in the shadows when necessary. The meeting proceeded with preliminary discussions, each species presenting their interests and concerns regarding the treaty. Derek remained silent, observing, analyzing. His military training from his days in Earth's Marines had taught him patience, the ability to wait for the perfect moment. That moment came sooner than expected. We cannot trust the Earth forces. The accusation came suddenly from a Vorak representative who stood up, pointing a green finger directly at Derek. They may be plotting to seize control of the Thousand Eye Nebula system. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to Derek Vance, the lone human in their midst. He felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken questions, the simmering distrust. Slowly, deliberately, Derek rose to his feet. His black cloak shifted around him as he moved, revealing glimpses of the fitted combat suit beneath, a reminder of his military past. His face remained impassive, but his eyes held a sharp intensity that made even the boldest Vorak representatives shift uncomfortably. "That's quite an accusation," Derek said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "I wasn't aware that Earth had shown any interest in the Thousand Eye Nebula, much less made moves to seize it." He turned to face the Vorak representative directly. "Perhaps you could enlighten us all about what evidence leads you to make such a claim." The Vorak's scales seemed to darken with emotion, a physiological reaction Derek recognized as agitation. "We have intercepted communications suggesting Earth vessels have been mapping jump points around the nebula's periphery." "Scientific exploration vessels," Derek corrected, "operating under the Multi-System Federation's Article 7, which allows for astronomical research in neutral zones. All data from these missions is publicly available in the Federation archives." He gestured toward President Milan. "I believe the President can confirm this." Malon Ethar nodded, mechanical eyes whirring slightly as they refocused. The Earth vessel's missions were indeed registered and approved by the Federation Science Council. The Vorak representative was not deterred. "Then explain why these scientific vessels were equipped with military-grade shields." Derek sighed, maintaining his composure. "The Thousand Eye Nebula is known for its radiation flares and gravitational anomalies. Those shields are standard safety equipment for any vessel entering such hazardous regions, as I'm sure the Vorak Defense Fleet knows well, given their own frequent patrols of the area." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Derek had subtly turned the accusation back on the Vorak, highlighting their own significant presence near the nebula, without explicitly making a counter-accusation. The Vorak representative's face contorted with fury, but before he could respond, Elder Yorn Vorak raised a hand, silencing him immediately. "Perhaps," the elder said, his voice deep and resonant, "we should return to the matter at hand, the Atmospheric Alliance Treaty. These security concerns can be addressed in the appropriate committee." Derek inclined his head respectfully to the elder, but his mind was racing. The accusation had not been random. It was a calculated move to discredit Earth, perhaps to weaken their position in the treaty negotiations. But why? What advantage would the Vorak gain from this? As the meeting resumed, Derek caught sight of a Helax representative, watching him with unusual intensity. Unlike the others, whose gazes held suspicion or hostility, her eyes conveyed something different: knowledge, perhaps, or warning. He made a mental note to learn more about her. In the dangerous game of interstellar politics, potential allies were as valuable as information. The meeting continued, but Derek found his attention divided. President Malon's message about Project Luminous Annihilation echoed in his mind. If the rumors were true, someone within the Federation was developing a weapon of mass destruction, and given the Vorak's unexpected hostility toward Earth today, he couldn't help but wonder if there was a connection. Derek glanced out the massive viewport at the endless expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, a deadly plot was unfolding, and somehow, he needed to uncover it before it was too late. As the representatives filed out of the chamber at the meeting's conclusion, Derek felt a presence near him. Turning, he found himself face to face with the Helax representative who had been watching him. Up close, he could see that her pale blue hair cascaded down to her back like a waterfall, and her eyes held both gentleness and iron determination. "Vance," she said quietly, "we need to talk." Derek checked to ensure no one was within earshot. "I don't believe we've been formally introduced." "Lydra Helax," she replied with a slight nod. "And I know more about Project Luminous than you might expect." Derek's interest was immediately piqued, but years of training had taught him caution. "We should find somewhere more private for this conversation." Lydra nodded in agreement. "The Central Nexus has eyes and ears everywhere. Meet me at observation deck B7 in 1 hour. Come alone." With that, she glided away, her movements graceful as she rejoined her delegation. Derek watched her leave, his mind processing this new development. Lydra Halax, a senior diplomat for the Halax species, known for their commitment to peaceful relations. If she was concerned about Project Luminous, then the situation was potentially more serious than he had initially thought. As he made his way back to his temporary quarters, Derek couldn't shake the feeling that events were accelerating faster than anticipated. President Malan's warning, the Vorax accusations, and now this mysterious meeting with Lydra, all pointed to a conspiracy much larger than mere trade disputes. In his quarters, Derek secured the door and initiated a quick scan for surveillance devices. Finding none, he opened his secure briefcase and activated his encrypted communication device. "Central Command, this is Vance," he spoke quietly. "I need everything we have on a project codenamed Luminous Annihilation and any connections to the Vorak delegation, particularly anyone named Yorak Vorak." The response came quickly. "Information limited. Project Luminous believed to be weapons development program. Unconfirmed reports suggest planet-killing capabilities using celestium crystals. Yorak Vorak is the grandson of Elder Yorn Vorak, not officially part of the delegation but believed to be on the central nexus. Proceed with extreme caution. Vance, this operation is not officially sanctioned." "Understood," Derek replied, his expression grim. Planet-killing capabilities. The implications were staggering. If such a weapon existed and fell into the wrong hands, entire civilizations could be wiped out in an instant. He closed the communication and checked the time. 45 minutes until his meeting with Lydra. Just enough time to prepare. Derek arrived at observation deck B7 precisely on time, having taken a circuitous route to ensure he wasn't followed. The deck was deserted, as expected at this hour, offering a panoramic view of the galaxy that would normally be breathtaking. Tonight, however, Derek had no eyes for the celestial beauty spread before him. Lydra emerged from the shadows, near the far viewport. She had changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something more practical, a fitted jumpsuit that allowed for greater freedom of movement. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper despite the empty deck. "You mentioned Project Luminous," Derek replied, getting straight to the point. "What do you know?" Lydra's expression became grave. "Not here." She gestured to a small device in her hand. "This creates a momentary disruption in surveillance systems, but it won't last long. Follow me." She led him through a service door and into a maintenance corridor rarely used by the Nexus staff. Once they were deep enough into the passage, she activated another device that emitted a soft hum, a more powerful anti-surveillance measure. "Now we can talk," she said. "Project Luminous Annihilation is real, and it's worse than your people suspect. It's a weapon designed to harness the destructive potential of celestium crystals. When properly calibrated, it could destroy an entire planet within minutes." Derek's jaw tightened. "Who's behind it?" "Yorak Vorak," Lydra answered. "The Elder's grandson. He leads what they call the Vorak Shadow Faction, extremists who believe in Vorak supremacy. They've been secretly gathering celestium from mining operations across 3 sectors. "And their target?" Lydra's eyes met his. "Initially, the Ether homeworld, then the Helax systems, any world they consider a threat to Vorak dominance." Derek processed this information quickly. "We need evidence, solid proof we can present to the Council." "That's why I contacted you," Lydra said. "There's a secret celestium storage facility deep within the Dinex electronic zone. Heavily guarded, but not impossible to infiltrate with the right expertise." She gave him a knowing look. "Your expertise." "You've been researching me," Derek observed, not entirely surprised. "Former Earth Marine Special Operations, expert in covert infiltration and extraction. currently serving as a diplomatic attaché, though we both know that's not your primary role here." She offered a small, apologetic smile. "The Helax intelligence network is quite thorough." Derek couldn't help but be impressed. "Fair enough. When do we move?" "Tonight," Lydra said. "Security will be focused on the reception for the treaty negotiations. We'll have a small window of opportunity, while most of the Nexus security personnel are deployed there." Derek nodded. "I'll need access to the facility schematics and security protocols." "Already acquired," Lydra replied, producing a small data crystal. "This contains everything you'll need, including the patrol schedules and sensor configurations." As Derek took the crystal, their fingers briefly touched. He felt an unexpected current pass between them. Not just physical, but something deeper. A recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits united by a common purpose. "Why are you doing this?" he asked suddenly. "Why trust me, an Earthling, with this information?" Lydra's expression softened slightly. "Because sometimes, doing what's right transcends species or political alliances. The Vorak Shadow faction must be stopped, and you're the best chance we have." Derek studied her for a moment, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, he nodded. "Then we have work to do." For the next several hours, they pored over the facility schematics, devising an infiltration plan that would get them in and out with the evidence they needed. The Celestium storage facility was buried deep within the central nexus, protected by multiple layers of security, including biometric sensors and patrol drones. "The facility is monitored by an AI security system called Argos," Lydra explained, pointing to a control node on the schematic. "It processes all sensor data and coordinates the security response. If we can temporarily blind it, we'll have about 8 minutes before the backup systems engage." Derek examined the AI's configuration. "I can disrupt its primary data feeds, but we'll need a diversion to draw attention away from the storage area itself." "Leave that to me," Lydra said with confidence. "I've prepared something that should keep the security teams occupied on the other side of the Nexus." As midnight approached, they finalized their plan. Derek changed into a stealth suit he had brought in his briefcase, a marvel of Earth technology that could dampen life signs and reduce visibility to sensors. Lydra produced a similar outfit, though of Helax design. "Remember," she said as they prepared to depart, "we're just there for evidence. If we're discovered, we abort immediately. This isn't worth dying for." Derek gave her a grim smile. "Some things are." They moved through the Nexus like shadows, using service corridors and maintenance shafts to avoid the main thoroughfares. Lydra's knowledge of the station's layout proved invaluable, guiding them past security checkpoints and sensor arrays. As they approached the Dinex electronic zone, Derek activated his stealth systems, feeling the familiar tingle as the suit's technology engaged. Beside him, Lydra did the same, her form becoming slightly blurred to the naked eye. "Security checkpoint ahead," she whispered. 3 guards, standard rotation." Derek nodded. "On your signal." Lydra activated her diversion, a series of false alarms in a distant section of the Nexus, designed to draw security personnel away from their position. Within moments, 2 of the guards received orders to investigate, leaving only 1 at the checkpoint. "Now," Derek whispered. They moved in perfect synchronization, slipping past the remaining guard while his attention was focused on his communication device. Beyond the checkpoint, the corridor led deeper into the Dinex zone, the lighting growing dimmer as they progressed. "Argos monitoring junction is ahead," Lydra indicated a small access panel. "You'll need to bypass it while I keep watch." Derek approached the panel, examining its security measures. Advanced, but not impenetrable. He removed a small device from his belt, a specialized hacking tool designed by Earth's top cyber warfare experts. "This will take a minute," he murmured, connecting the device to the panel's interface. As he worked, Lydra tensed suddenly. "Movement. 2 corridors over. Derek's fingers moved faster, bypassing security protocols and inserting false data streams into Argos's sensors. Almost there. A soft chime indicated success. Done. Argos is blind in this sector for the next 8 minutes. Let's move. They hurried deeper into the facility, following the path they had memorized from the schematics. The Celestium storage vault was located in a heavily reinforced chamber at the heart of the Dinex zone. As they rounded a corner, Lydra suddenly pulled Derek back, pressing them both against the wall. A moment later, a convoy of Vorax security vehicles glided past, escorting a large, shielded container. "Celestium transport," she whispered. "They're moving it." Derek quickly activated his imaging device, capturing footage of the convoy. The container's markings were clearly visible. LV-77, Workshop Crystal Number 9, Accumulation 3.7 kilos, Explosive Gas M113. M113, Lydra breathed, her voice tight with concern. "That's weapons-grade Celestium, the kind used in the CEOV wars. They're actually doing it." Derek's expression hardened. "We need to follow that transport." They tracked the convoy through the Dinex zone, maintaining a safe distance while Derek continued to record evidence. The transport eventually arrived at a secure hangar bay, where the container was transferred to a heavily armored vessel. "That's a Vorak diplomatic shuttle," Lydra observed. "Sovereign immunity. No one can search it without violating about 50 interstellar treaties." Derek watched as Yorak Vorak himself emerged from a nearby doorway to oversee the loading. Though he had never met the Vorak in person, Derek recognized him from intelligence briefings, younger than the elder, with scales of a deeper green and eyes that burned with fanatical intensity. "There's our conspirator," Derek murmured, capturing clear images of Yorak directing the operation. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility. "Argos is back online," Lydra said urgently. "We need to leave, now." They turned to retreat, but security forces were already flooding into the area, responding to the alarm. Derek pulled Lydra into a maintenance alcove as a squad of Vorak guards rushed past. "We're cut off from our exit route," he whispered, checking the facility schematic on his wrist device. "There's another way," Lydra replied. "Through the atmospheric processing center. But it's risky. The environmental controls create unpredictable conditions." "No choice," Derek decided. "Lead the way." They slipped out of the alcove and made their way toward the processing center, avoiding security patrols when possible and moving quickly when not. As they approached the center's entrance, a shout from behind indicated they had been spotted. "Vorak security!" Lydra warned, as energy bolts struck the wall near them. They sprinted into the processing center, a vast chamber filled with machinery that regulated the Nexus's atmospheric composition. Massive ducts and conduits crisscrossed the space, while platforms and walkways provided access to the various systems. "Up there," Derek pointed to a catwalk that led toward an exit on the far side. "If we can reach that, we should be able to access the main corridor beyond." They climbed rapidly, even as security forces poured into the chamber below. The catwalk swayed slightly under their weight as they ran, energy bolts sizzling past them to strike the metal railings. Halfway across, disaster struck. A lucky shot hit a control panel near the catwalk, causing a sudden pressure release that sent a blast of superheated air surging upward. The catwalk buckled, throwing Lydra against the railing. She cried out, losing her grip on her data device as she struggled to regain her balance. The device clattered to a platform below, where security forces were rapidly converging. "My evidence!" she shouted. Derek made a split-second decision. They needed that evidence. Without it, they had nothing to present to the Council except their word against the Voraks. He vaulted over the railing, dropping to the lower platform in a controlled fall. Vorak guards shouted in surprise as he landed among them. Derek moved with practiced efficiency, disabling 2 guards with quick strikes before scooping up Lydra's device. More guards converged on his position, firing their weapons. Derek dodged, using the platform's machinery as cover. But he was outnumbered and surrounded. Above, Lydra had recovered her balance and now held a small control unit. She activated it, and suddenly the platform's drone maintenance systems came to life. The security drones, reprogrammed by Lydra's device, created enough confusion for Derek to break free and make his way back to the catwalk. "This way!" Lydra called, pointing to an access hatch that had opened in the ceiling. Derek sprinted across the remaining length of the catwalk, energy bolts exploding around him. He leaped, catching the edge of the hatch opening, and pulled himself up with Lydra's help. They sealed the hatch behind them, finding themselves in a narrow maintenance tunnel that ran above the processing center. "That was too close," Lydra said, breathing heavily. Derek handed her the data device. "But worth it. We have the evidence, transport logs, visual confirmation of Yorak's involvement, and the Celestium marking. It's enough to take to President Milan." Lydra checked the device, confirming the data was intact. "Not just to Milan. We need to present this to the entire council. The Vorak Shadow faction has supporters throughout the Federation administration. We can't be sure who to trust." Derek nodded grimly. "Then we go straight to the top. The council reconvenes tomorrow for the treaty signing. That's our opportunity." They made their way through the maintenance tunnels, eventually emerging in a seldom-used corridor, several sectors away from the D-Nex zone. By now, security alerts would be sounding throughout the Nexus. But they had put enough distance between themselves and the incident to avoid immediate capture. "We should separate," Lydra suggested. "It will be harder for them to track us. Meet me at the council chamber tomorrow, 1 hour before the session begins." Derek agreed, though reluctantly. "Be careful. The Vorak won't stop looking for us." "Neither will Argos," she reminded him. "The AI has our biometric signatures now. It will be hunting us through every system in the Nexus." As they prepared to part ways, Lydra hesitated, then touched Derek's arm lightly. "Thank you," she said softly, "for risking your life back there." Derek met her gaze. "We're in this together now." With that, they went their separate ways, each disappearing into the shadowed corridors of the central Nexus, carrying the evidence that could prevent a galactic catastrophe, if they lived long enough to present it. Derek spent the night moving from location to location, never staying in one place long enough for Argos to pinpoint him. He used public terminals to monitor the Nexus security channels, confirming that a manhunt was indeed underway for unauthorized intruders in the D-Nex zone. By morning, he had managed to send an encrypted message to President Milan, requesting an urgent private meeting before the council session. The response came quickly. "Security situation complex. Meet in Antechamber B, EO 800 hours." Derek arrived early, taking precautions to ensure he wasn't followed. The antechamber was a small, formal room adjacent to the main council chamber, typically used for private discussions between delegates. President Milan was already there, his cybernetic components humming softly in the quiet room. "Vance," the president acknowledged, his voice modulated to prevent eavesdropping. "You've caused quite a stir." "With good reason, Mr. President," Derek replied, producing a secure data crystal containing copies of the evidence he and Lydra had gathered. "Project Luminous Annihilation is real. The Vorak Shadow faction, led by Yorak Vorak, is developing a planet-killing weapon using weaponized Celestium crystals." He handed the crystal to Milan, who inserted it into a port in his cybernetic arm. The president's eyes flickered as he processed the data. "This is disturbing," Milan said finally. "But I'm not convinced. These could be standard military transports. The Vorak have always maintained a defense force." Derek frowned. "Mr. President, the markings clearly indicate M113 Celestium, a compound specifically designed for mass destruction, and Yorak's involvement could be explained as routine oversight of military matters." Milan interrupted. "The Vorak will claim this is a misunderstanding. That you've manipulated the evidence. Derek studied the president closely. Something wasn't right. Malon's dismissive response seemed at odds with his initial warning about Project Luminous. Sir, with respect, you were the one who alerted me to this threat in the first place. Malon's expression remained impassive, but Derek noticed a subtle flicker in the cybernetic components of his eyes. A glitch, perhaps, or something more. Yes, based on rumors, the president said. But now I've reviewed your evidence and find it unconvincing. I suggest you drop this matter. Vance, for your own sake. Derek felt a chill run through him. Either the president had been compromised, or he had been playing a deeper game all along. Either way, Derek couldn't count on his support. I understand, Mr. President, he said carefully. Thank you for your time. As Derek left the antechamber, his mind raced. If Malon wouldn't help, their only option was to present the evidence directly to the full council. But that would be infinitely more dangerous now, especially if the president actively opposed them. He needed to find Lythra and warn her. The stakes had just gotten much higher. The main corridor outside the council chamber was bustling with activity, as delegates and their aides prepared for the session. Derek scanned the crowd, looking for Lythra, while maintaining a casual demeanor to avoid attracting attention. He spotted her near one of the auxiliary entrances, disguised in formal Helax diplomatic attire that partially concealed her face. He approached indirectly, pretending to study a display of Federation historical artifacts. Malon is compromised, he murmured when she was within earshot, not looking at her directly. Possibly mentally influenced by Yorak. He rejected the evidence and warned me to drop the investigation. Lythra's expression didn't change, but he sensed her tension. Then we proceed with the alternative plan. I've prepared a direct broadcast link to the Federation public channels. When the time comes, we'll bypass the Council's internal systems entirely. They'll try to shut it down, Derek warned. They won't have time, Lythra assured him. Once initiated, the broadcast will continue for at least 3 minutes, enough to get the truth out. The chamber doors began to open as the session time approached. Delegates filed in, taking their places at the circular arrangement of seats. Derek and Lythra entered separately, each moving to their designated areas. The council chamber seemed more imposing than ever, with its high ceiling and panoramic viewports showing the vastness of space beyond. Derek took his seat at the Earth delegation's position, noting that security personnel were more numerous than usual, particularly around the Vorak section. President Malon called the session to order, his voice echoing through the chamber. Honored representatives, we convene today to finalize the Pan-Galactic Atmosphere Alliance Treaty. Before we proceed to the signing, are there any matters that must be addressed by the full council? This was the traditional opening that allowed for last-minute concerns to be raised. Derek rose to his feet immediately. The Earth delegation wishes to present evidence of a grave threat to galactic peace, he announced, his voice clear and firm. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Malon's cybernetic eyes focused on Derek with an intensity that seemed almost threatening. The council recognizes the Earth representative, Malon said, his tone neutral, but with an underlying hardness. Derek moved to the central podium, where he would have access to the chamber's display systems. As he passed the Vorak delegation, he noticed Yorak Vorak himself had joined them today, sitting beside his grandfather, Elder Yorn. Yorak's expression was one of contained fury as he watched Derek approach the podium. Representatives of the Federation, Derek began. I present evidence of a plot that threatens the existence of multiple worlds. He inserted the data crystal into the podium's interface. This evidence was gathered from the Denex Zone Celestium storage facility less than 12 hours ago. The chamber's displays activated, showing the footage of the Vorak convoy transporting the shielded container. Derek highlighted the container's markings. LV-77, Workshop Crystal Number 9, Accumulation 3.7 kilos. explosive gas, M113. As you can see, Derek continued, this is weapons-grade M113 Celestium, the same compound used in the devastating CEOV wars. It is being transported under the direct supervision of Yorak Vorak. All eyes turned to Yorak, who stood abruptly. This is outrageous, he snarled. This human has falsified evidence to slander the Vorak people. That container holds experimental energy crystals for peaceful power generation. Derek remained calm. The M113 designation is clear. This is not an energy source. It's a component for a weapon capable of destroying entire planets. A weapon that the Vorak Shadow faction intends to use against worlds they consider threats to their dominance. Yorak's scales darkened with rage. The Earth representative speaks of shadows, while lurking in them himself. He infiltrated a secure facility, violated diplomatic protocols, and now presents doctored footage to this council. President Meilon raised a hand to quiet the growing commotion. These are serious allegations on both sides. Perhaps we should adjourn to examine this evidence more thoroughly. No, Derek interrupted firmly. This cannot wait. Lives are at stake. He turned to address the entire council. I have additional evidence. He activated another file on the crystal, a historical record from the Federation archives. This is documentation of the M113 Celestium compound used during the CEOV wars. The molecular structure, energy signature, and containment requirements match exactly what we observed in the DNEX facility. The display showed side-by-side comparisons, leaving no doubt that the substances were identical. Shocked murmurs spread through the chamber as delegates realized the implications. Yorak's fury seemed to reach a breaking point. He turned to President Meilon. This farce has gone on long enough. Activate security protocols. To Derek's alarm, Meilon nodded and pressed a control on his podium. Immediately, the chamber's defense systems activated. Security fields sprang up around the exits, and defensive lasers emerged from hidden compartments in the ceiling. The council is now in lockdown, Meilon announced, his voice strangely flat. For security purposes, all delegates will remain in place while these allegations are investigated. Derek realized with growing horror that Meilon's actions weren't those of a leader seeking to maintain order. They were the actions of someone being controlled. Yorak had somehow compromised the president's cybernetic systems. Across the chamber, Lydra caught Derek's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. She was activating their backup plan. Representatives of the Federation, Derek called out, raising his voice to be heard above the growing chaos. President Meilon has been mentally compromised by Yorak Vorak. His cybernetic interfaces have been hacked to make him compliant. This announcement sent the chamber into further disarray. Some delegates rose to their feet in alarm, while others called for calm. The security personnel looked confused, unsure whether to follow Meilon's orders or respond to Derek's accusations. Yorak strode to the central area of the chamber, his voice thundering above the commotion. This human spreads lies and discord. He seeks to undermine the Federation itself. Derek stood his ground. Look at the real face of your conspiracy, Yorak Vorak. In that moment, Lydra activated her device. The chamber's main viewport suddenly transformed into a massive broadcast screen, displaying the evidence they had gathered to every world in the Federation simultaneously. There was no stopping it now. The truth was being revealed to billions across the galaxy. Yorak realized what was happening and roared with rage. He activated a control device of his own, and the chamber's defensive lasers oriented toward Derek, targeting him directly. You've interfered for the last time, Earthling, Yorak snarled. Before the lasers could fire, Lydra triggered her override command, temporarily disabling the weapon systems. The lasers powered down, leaving Yorak momentarily stunned by this unexpected development. Taking advantage of the confusion, Derek leaped from the podium, closing the distance between himself and Yorak. The Vorak was prepared, however. and revealed what he had been concealing: a small M113 Celestium crystal, already glowing with dangerous energy. "If I cannot have victory," Yorak growled, "then none shall." The crystal's glow intensified, a sign that it was building toward detonation. Even a crystal this small could destroy the entire council chamber and kill everyone inside. Derek lunged forward, grappling with Yorak for control of the deadly crystal. They struggled fiercely, crashing into the central podium as delegates scattered in panic. The crystal's glow pulsed with increasing frequency, signaling imminent detonation. Using his combat training, Derek managed to knock Yorak off balance, seizing the crystal from his grasp. But now, he held a literal time bomb in his hands. The Celestium was too unstable to move safely, and there was nowhere to dispose of it. "Lydra," he shouted, "the neutralizer!" Lydra rushed forward, producing a small device designed specifically for handling unstable Celestium. Together, they applied the neutralizer to the crystal, working to contain and dissipate its energy before it could reach critical mass. The chamber shook as the crystal's energy surged and fought against their efforts. Sweat beaded on Derek's forehead as he maintained his grip, knowing that a single slip could mean disaster. Gradually, agonizingly, the crystal's glow began to dim. Its deadly energy slowly dissipated under the influence of the neutralizer, until finally it lay inert in Derek's hands, still dangerous, but no longer on the verge of explosion. Throughout this intense struggle, Lydra had ensured that their broadcast continued uninterrupted. Across the galaxy, worlds watched as Yorak attempted to detonate a Celestium weapon in the heart of the Federation Council, confirming everything Derek had claimed. The broadcast also revealed President Milan's strange behavior, leading to immediate calls for his temporary removal until his cybernetic systems could be examined for tampering. As security forces, now following emergency protocols rather than Milan's compromised commands, moved to apprehend Yorak, the chamber doors burst open. Elder Yorn Vorak entered, his expression a mask of shock and dismay as he witnessed his grandson's actions displayed on the massive viewport. "Yorak," the elder said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "what have you done in our name?" Yorak, restrained by security personnel, glared defiantly at his grandfather. "What you lacked the courage to do. The Vorak should rule this federation, not share power with lesser species." Elder Yorn shook his head sadly. "This is not our way. The Vorak seek strength through honor, not through destruction." He turned to the council, many of whom were still reeling from the near disaster. "On behalf of the Vorak people, I apologize for my grandson's actions. He will face our justice for his crimes." In the aftermath, as the chamber slowly returned to order, Derek found himself the center of attention. Delegates approached to thank him for his bravery, while others examined the neutralized Celestium crystal with wary fascination. President Milan, temporarily relieved of duty pending an examination of his cybernetic systems, was escorted from the chamber. Initial scans had already detected unauthorized modifications to his neural interface, evidence of Yorak's tampering. Lydra approached Derek, her expression a mixture of relief and satisfaction. The broadcast reached every major world in the Federation. There can be no cover-up now. The truth about Project Luminous is known to all. Derek nodded, feeling the weight of the past 24 hours settling on his shoulders. "And the Celestium stockpile in the D-Next zone? Federation security teams are securing it as we speak," she replied. "With Yorak exposed, his supporters are already distancing themselves from the Shadow faction." Elder Yorn Vorak approached them, his bearing dignified despite the shame his grandson had brought upon their people. "Representative Vance, Diplomat Helax." He acknowledged them formally. "The Vorak owe you a debt of gratitude for preventing a catastrophe that would have dishonored our entire species." Derek inclined his head respectfully. "Elder Yorn, your swift action to contain this situation speaks to your wisdom. The actions of the Shadow faction do not reflect on the Vorak people as a whole. The Elder's eyes showed appreciation for this diplomatic response. Nevertheless, reparations must be made. The Vorak delegation will withdraw from treaty negotiations until we have conducted a thorough investigation of our own ranks. Those who supported my grandson's madness will be identified and brought to justice. As the Elder departed, Derek and Lydra found themselves momentarily alone in a quiet corner of the chamber. "What happens now?" Derek asked. Lydra's expression was thoughtful. "The Federation will need to recover from this crisis. Trust has been damaged, but perhaps also strengthened in some ways. The joint effort to expose the conspiracy has shown what we can accomplish when we work together across species lines." Derek looked out at the stars, visible through the viewport. Countless worlds that had narrowly avoided becoming targets of a madman's weapon. "There will be others like Yorak," he said quietly. "Other threats, other conspiracies. And there will be people like us to stop them," Lydra replied, her hand briefly touching his. "That's the true strength of the Federation, not our technology or our treaties, but our shared commitment to protecting life in all its forms." As the council began to reconvene, with an acting president taking Malon's place, Derek knew that a new chapter was beginning, not just for him or for Earth, but for the entire multi-system Federation. The shadow of Project Luminous had been lifted, but vigilance would always be necessary to preserve the fragile peace between worlds. And in that moment, standing beside Lydra as they prepared to help rebuild what Yorak had nearly destroyed, Derek felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope for the future, and the certainty that some battles were truly worth fighting. The days following the Council Chamber confrontation were a whirlwind of activity. Federation investigators combed through the evidence Derek and Lydra had gathered, uncovering the full extent of the Vorak Shadow faction's operation. Cells of supporters were identified on multiple worlds, and additional Celestium stockpiles were located and secured. President Malon, after having Yorak's invasive programming purged from his cybernetic systems, resumed his duties with a renewed commitment to security and transparency. His first official act was to bestow upon Derek the title of Distinguished Diplomat, a rarely awarded honor that recognized extraordinary service to the Federation. "Representative Vance," Malon said during the ceremony, his voice now free of the flat tone that had marked his compromise. "Your actions exemplify the highest ideals of Federation service. You risked your life not just for Earth, but for all worlds united under our banner." Derek accepted the honor with appropriate gravity, though privately, he felt uncomfortable with the attention. Throughout his career, he had operated in the shadows, not the spotlight. Yorak Vorak faced justice swiftly. The Vorak High Council, led by Elder Yorn, tried him for crimes against their own people as well as the Federation. The sentence was severe: permanent exile to a monitoring facility on the Outer Rim, where he would spend the remainder of his life contemplating the consequences of his actions. The most significant outcome, however, was the renewed commitment to the Pan-Galactic Atmosphere Alliance Treaty. With the shadow of Project Luminous removed, the Federation's member worlds approached the negotiations with fresh determination. "We have seen what happens when technology is perverted for destructive purposes," Elder Yorn declared during the rescheduled signing ceremony. "The Vorak pledged to share our knowledge of Celestium for peaceful applications only, to benefit all species." It was a historic moment, the first time the Vorak had openly offered to share their closely guarded Celestium expertise. Other delegations responded in kind, committing resources and technology to a new era of cooperation. Earth, represented by Derek, signed agreements to provide technical assistance for developing renewable Celestium energy production, helping smaller planets achieve energy independence. The treaties would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Throughout these momentous events, Derek found himself working closely with Lydra. Their shared experience had forged a bond that transcended their professional roles. As the Halak's ambassador for interspecies relations, Lydra was instrumental in rebuilding trust between the various Federation members. The satellite broadcast network we used to expose Yorak has been repurposed, she told Derek one evening, as they stood on an observation deck, watching shuttles come and go from the central nexus. It's now a direct communication channel between worlds, allowing citizens to share their stories and perspectives without governmental filtering. Derek smiled at the elegance of this solution. Turning a tool of crisis into a bridge between cultures, that's very Helax of you. Lydra's eyes sparkled with amusement. Is that a compliment, Representative Vance? Absolutely, he replied. The Helax talent for finding harmony in chaos is something Earth could learn from. Their conversation was interrupted by a notification on Derek's communication device, a message from Earth Command. He read it quickly, his expression growing serious. Everything all right? Lydra asked, noticing the change. Derek nodded slowly. My assignment at the Central Nexus is ending. Earth Command wants me to return for debriefing and reassignment. I see. Lydra was quiet for a moment. Will you go? It was a question that had been weighing on Derek's mind. After the events of the past weeks, the thought of returning to Earth and accepting another covert assignment felt insufficient. The galaxy had changed, and perhaps he had changed with it. I'm considering my options, he said finally. The Distinguished Diplomat title comes with certain privileges, including the right to establish an independent observation office. I could remain here, serve as a liaison between Earth and the Federation, but with more autonomy. Lydra's expression brightened. That would be beneficial for Federation relations. Just Federation relations, Derek asked, allowing a rare moment of personal vulnerability to show through his diplomatic facade. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Not just Federation relations, she admitted softly. Their moment of connection was interrupted by another notification. This one, on Lydra's device. She checked it with a slight frown. The Helax Council is summoning all senior diplomats, she explained. The Harmony Summit is being planned earlier than expected. They want me to coordinate the diplomatic protocols. Derek recognized the importance of this assignment. The Harmony Summit was a major gathering of species from across the galaxy, designed to foster deeper understanding and cooperation. That's a significant responsibility, he said. When do you leave? 3 days, she replied. But I'll be returning to the Central Nexus afterward. The summit is just the beginning of a new diplomatic initiative. As they parted ways that evening, Derek felt a sense of anticipation rather than loss. The future stretched before them, filled with possibilities that neither had imagined before their paths crossed in the council chamber. The next morning, Derek sent his response to Earth Command. He would complete his debriefing via secure channel, but he would not be returning to Earth for reassignment. Instead, he would establish the observation office at the Central Nexus, serving as Earth's eyes and ears at the heart of the Federation while maintaining his independence. The response came quickly, with less resistance than he had expected. His actions during the Yorak crisis had earned him considerable latitude, and Earth's leadership recognized the value of having a respected figure representing their interests in the Federation. As the final details of the Pan-Galactic Atmosphere Alliance were being implemented, Derek found himself increasingly involved in the practical aspects of the treaty. His office became a nexus of information and coordination, helping to translate diplomatic language into concrete actions that benefited worlds across the galaxy. The day before Lydra was scheduled to depart for the Harmony Summit, they met one last time on the observation deck that had become their unofficial meeting place. I've been thinking about what you said, Lydra began. About Earth learning from the Helax approach to harmony. Derek raised an eyebrow. Oh? The Harmony Summit could benefit from an Earth perspective as well, she continued. The organizing committee has extended an invitation for you to attend as a special advisor. Derek was surprised. The Harmony Summit was traditionally a Helix-led initiative, with other species participating as guests rather than advisors. That's unprecedented, he observed. Lythra smiled. Many things seem to be unprecedented lately. Perhaps that's a sign we're moving in the right direction. Derek considered the invitation. Attending the summit would mean leaving his newly established office temporarily, but it would also provide an opportunity to help shape the future of interspecies relations. I'd be honored to accept, he said finally. As they stood together, looking out at the stars that represented countless worlds and species all sharing the same universe, Derek reflected on the journey that had brought him here. What had begun as a routine diplomatic assignment had evolved into something far more significant, not just professionally, but personally as well. Do you think we've really changed anything? He asked suddenly. The Federation, the treaty, exposing Project Luminous. Will it make a lasting difference? Lythra considered the question thoughtfully. I believe it already has. Not just in policy or treaties, but in perception. Species that have been suspicious of each other for generations are beginning to see that cooperation isn't just idealistic. It's practical, necessary, even. She gestured toward the viewport, where a Vorak diplomatic vessel was departing the Nexus. Elder Yorn told me yesterday that young Vorak are studying Helix philosophy for the first time in centuries. And Helix scientists are being welcomed at Vorak research facilities. Derek smiled. Small steps. Small steps that were impossible before, Lythra corrected gently. That's how lasting change happens. Not all at once, but gradually. Until one day you look back and realize the universe is different than it was. As they stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars, Derek knew she was right. The confrontation with Yorak had been dramatic, even heroic in its way. But the real work of building peace would be quieter, steadier, the daily effort of bridging differences and finding common ground. It was work he was increasingly eager to be part of. 3 days later, as Lythra's ship prepared to depart for the Harmony Summit, with Derek now aboard as an advisor, news arrived that the first joint Vorak Helix research facility had been established, dedicated to studying peaceful applications of Celestium technology. It was being built on neutral territory, open to scientists from all Federation species. A good omen for our journey, Lythra remarked as they reviewed the announcement. Derek nodded in agreement. The first of many, I hope. As the ship disengaged from the central nexus and set course for the summit, Derek took one last look at the massive structure that had been the stage for so much drama and transformation. It seemed smaller now, just one point of light among countless others in the vastness of space. But he knew that from such points of light, new beginnings emerged. And as he turned to join Lythra in preparing for the summit, Derek Vance, Earth diplomat, crisis negotiator, and now bridge between worlds, felt ready for whatever the galaxy might bring next. The lone figure who had once sat motionless in the dark corner of a council meeting was now stepping fully into the light. No longer a solitary presence, but part of something larger. The game hadn't collapsed as Yorak had intended. Instead, it had evolved, opening new paths toward a future where different species could truly understand one another. And in that understanding, perhaps they would find the harmony that had eluded them for so long.